After days of her name being thrown up during the ICAC inquiry, Kayla Murnane took to the stand and her evidence was explosive.
Kayla, why didn't you report the illegal donation? Why have you kept it quiet for so long?
The Corruption Watchdog's probe centres around the now infamous Chinese Friends of Labor event in March 2015. $100,000 cash was allegedly delivered by Chinese billionaire donor Wang Zhangmo to party headquarters after the dinner. Ms Murnane was asked by the ICAC about her knowledge of the donation. When did you become aware there was $100,000 cash to be banked in either or both accounts? I actually don't remember at what stage I became aware of a large amount of money. Ms Murnane was dragged into the scandal when Labor staffer Kenrick Chia revealed to ICAC that she had warned him to be careful of an Aldi shopping bag containing the money. Do you recall seeing an Aldi bag? I don't actually think I saw the Aldi bag, I just don't remember that. Saying be careful is something I would say to people anyway. Ms Murnane told the inquiry she first discovered Mr Wang was behind the donation almost a year and a half later when then Labor MP Ernest Wong confided in her outside New South Wales Parliament. She also claimed she spoke to party lawyer Ian Robertson about the donation. Ian said to me, there is no need to do anything from here. Don't record this meeting, don't put it in your diary, forget the conversation happened with Ernest, and I won't be billing you for this either. After meeting with Ernest Wong, Kayla Murnane's first call was to New South Wales Labor Senator Sam Dastyari for advice. The pair met in Mr Dastyari's car. He's due to give evidence on Thursday. But 3 days of explosive testimony was all it took for the ICAC to claim its latest scalp, with Labor leader Jodie McKay declaring she no longer has confidence in Ms Murnane's judgment, telling party officials to suspend her as party secretary.
I don't think Kayla's in any shape to keep going. To have the glare of the spotlight on you is one thing, and then to have ICAC hanging over your head is something else again. She's had a tough time, but she's okay. She's only 32.
Danica Di Giorgio, Sky News.
Well, you know, it's above the board meeting when you're meeting a senator in his car to talk about a $100,000 donation in cash and look the other way. Anyway, of course, Saintly Sam will be there to turn up and tell us all why he's a changed man, of course, from the bloke who had to leave the federal parliament after selling out national security position of both Labor and the country on the South China Sea. But that doesn't matter. Despite the fact that's what he was famous for, he can now trade on, of course, being a good boy who's learnt a million lessons. Stephen, it's fairly obvious that the boss has to go after, I mean, yeah, it's not just a bad look, it's bad practice. I just don't understand, and we can all say that it was under previous management, but if somebody turns around and says, here's a shopping bag with $100,000 in it, anyone, like the most junior staffer in an electorate office of a freshly elected MP knows, no, you can donate 10 grand once a month if you want to for the rest of the year, but I'm not taking that now and I'm not taking that ever. And certainly if you knew about the existence of this donation, and as was made clear today, that Kayla had a conversation with a state MP about this, a sitting senator about this, the lawyers about this, yet nothing happened. Well, I think Jodie McKay has actually passed the leadership test in New South Wales, which was she is the opposition leader in New South Wales. She is the Labor Party leader because Kayla Murnane backed in her over Chris Minns. So for her to strike back at a person who only recently put her into the job, I say Jodie McKay passes a test that sadly Kayla didn't.
Look, I think Jodie McKay has made the right call. I think Kayla's evidence today, and I mean, I've obviously, like Richo, known Kayla for a long time and
she's a lovely lady.
Worked with her closely. But I think what staggers me about this is what were people thinking where they believed they could get away with a scam like this? From the people who orchestrated it to the people who provided the money to the office staff, like what were people thinking? The laws are very, very clear. Whether you agree with them or disagree with them, the laws are very, very clear. I mean, the Liberal Party not that long ago had a whole range of MPs up before ICAC over very similar things. Ultimately, to my surprise, none of them were prosecuted with anything, but careers were ruined, and I suspect that Kayla's political career is probably over. And certainly of somebody who perhaps should have reported it and followed it up more thoroughly and got to the bottom of it completely. And we haven't seen all the evidence yet. But certainly the people who organised this, what were they thinking that they could keep it secret? I mean, I'm just staggered. In today's world, what on earth were they thinking?
But OK, I've got to ask too here, and apologies, Senators, but I mean, you know, Stephen, you're in a position to be able to speak a little more freely than, you know, a serving member, right? Chinese cash and the Labor Party. I mean, what has to happen here where, you know, people of all sorts of extractions are allowed to give to the political process? Nobody's suggesting anything but. But what culturally is going on or has been going on in the Labor Party? Now, I know there's been donations made to the Liberal Party, and when there's an issue worth talking about, I'll gladly talk about it as well. But you're a bloke who knows the Labor Party, knows the personalities, knows how this works. Where's the where to from here? How does Labor change its relationships with the people it is using as the connections to the Chinese community who think, you know, plastic bag, that'll be enough?
Look, clearly the decision to let someone walk into head office with an Aldi bag, a plastic bag, I mean, this is insane. It is against any reasonable level of behaviour. It fails the pub test, it fails the sniff test, give it anything you want. Yes, the Chinese community, particularly in Sydney, less so in Melbourne, though there are evidence in Melbourne of some activities that have been reported on the Herald Sun just recently. But yes, there are practices in New South Wales that have, if not already, I'm sure they have been, but stopped. But the Chinese community and the key figure here has now been banned from Australia on the advice of our security services for his involvement in the Chinese service. So we've got a bloke here who systematically uses connections with both the Labor and Liberal Party to try and curry favour, using hundreds of thousands of dollars to try and influence both parties' positions on various issues. It's something I've had a very strong position on for a long time, as you would know. I've not supported the pressure being put on through various donors to the Labor Party to change its position on things. I think that's unacceptable. You have to always, if you're a member of Parliament, put the national interest first. That is your primary obligation when you take the oath of office. And you cannot allow yourself to be swayed just because somebody might give $100,000 or $200,000 and want a favour to change your position on national security or a building development. It doesn't matter.
Well, and I've got to say, this is what I'm always a little bit cautious about the federal ICAC. Now, look, federal ICAC is happening. Both sides of politics say that it was going to happen. Clearly, I'm more than happy for Christian Porter to be the one coming up with the way that it works rather than QC doofus. But I do think it is important to note that part of this process that plays out around the country, Rex, is to the general public, if it walks like a court and it looks like a court and it sounds like a court, then it is clearly a court. But nothing has happened in this process that is about illegality. Perhaps potential impropriety, but that's not a legal test. Instead, what ends up happening is that with ICAC, the counsel assisting sets out the case and what they're trying to prove with the television cameras in the room as they make the opening statement. And then, because there's no other way of getting in and out of the building, the witnesses, and as soon as you're a witness giving evidence, then automatically it sounds like a courtroom. As soon as you're walking in and out of a courtroom being sort of bundled by photographers and media, it looks like you're going through a legal process. To a degree, you're going through a legal process, but this isn't the trial of the Labor Party for potential breaking of crimes. This is effectively searching for evidence in public. Is what's happening today, and the idea that someone's career is effectively done in 2 days of evidence, not proof of illegality, give you any cause about how that federal ICAC should work and how some of the theatrics around it should and shouldn't be limited?
Well, you know, I am a big supporter of a federal ICAC. I don't like these donations. It doesn't matter whether it's Chinese money in an Aldi bag or whether it's NRA money in a Walmart bag. the whole thing.
Never came, but okay.
Yeah, it never came, but it's about influencing, and it's improper. Now, in terms of ICACs, I think there does need to be a threshold test. I think there is the need for, in my view, wide referral powers, so someone can make a reference, but the initial evidence is held or was dealt with privately by the Commission, and indeed only after a particular threshold is established. Then we go to a situation like we have here in New South Wales with the ICAC. In my view, it should be allowed to hold hearings in public. That's a choice for the Commissioner. The Commissioner would be a learned legal practitioner, and indeed we must remember that ICACs do not make legal findings findings, judicial findings where people are put into courts. They may find someone has committed corruption, but it's not a finding that puts someone in jail. It then, of course, gets referred to a court where it's then dealt with, perhaps with less coercive and more conventional evidence rules. Because,
I mean, this is the thing. Look, Pauline, I know that I'm getting to a very, very narrow part of this conversation, right? But it'd be easy for us just to sort of bang on about, you know, the bag of money, the bag of money, the bag of money, the bag of money. I'm not changing the subject because I'm trying to save the Labor Party from an uncomfortable day, but we are seeing right now in real time how these bodies work, how they work well, and how I think some of the theatrics works poorly. That I think that I have my concerns, or it's part of a conversation, as you would say, Rex, which is about the idea of, if you're going to televise it, I think you televise the whole thing, not just the prosecutor effectively standing up and setting up the case against you, and then the only time we see you on TV is walking in and out of a court, not saying anything, looking guilty as hell. That would be one of the things in this. But, Pauline, it is coming. Both sides of politics want it. The crossbench is largely supportive. What's your position on the federal version of an ICAC that would do something like what's happening in New South Wales, where a political career is over after 2 days, but no proof or even suggestion of that person committing any form of illegality?
I think we need it, a national ICAC. There are crimes committed out there that there's no one to answer to, and I think we do need it, and I think the public want to see it. And corruption. I'll just go back to this whole thing about the $100,000. I thought that Stephen Conroy's comments were weak and pathetic. If that was One Nation receiving that Aldi bag full of $100,000, he would have actually been so scathing of me and the party. Yes, that's right. So scathing of me. The whole fact is that, you know, if anyone wants to offer me money, in which they have done, a cigarette company, and I've said this before, $50,000, and I said, I don't want your money, because you actually have to take the moral stand. People offer you that much money, they want something in return. They don't give it to you for nothing. And this is what's been happening, and people are so sick and tired of hearing these political parties, the large donations that they're getting from developers and different ones. They want something in return for that. And there is so much corruption that's happening with our politicians and decisions that are being made in councils right across the board that it stinks. It stinks to high heaven. And when you say China, I see Labor. Labor, Chinese. And this has been going on for a long time, and that's how the general public think about it. Get rid of these donations, huge donations. There has to be accountability, and the people are screaming out for it.
Now, Stephen, last word here. Are you excited that your mate Sam is going to walk in there and tell everyone that, you know, he was always on the side of the Angels, even though he stood there and sold out the National Security and Party platform?
Look, this is going to be a long and difficult week for the New South Wales Labor Party. I'm no idea what Sam's going to say. You could be right, but I don't think the Labor Party by the end of the week is going to be in a very good position at all. I mean, we've got our most senior officials suspended. We have the parliamentary leader saying they've got no confidence in them. We have 5 more weeks to go. I don't see the New South Wales Labor Party faring well by the end of the week, and I can't see it improving over the next 5 weeks. I think there's going to be a lot of soul searching in New South Wales, unfortunately. I think the culture that's allowed this to develop, and I take Pauline's point, the New South Wales Labor Party have allowed itself to become too close to the Chinese community. I don't think Pauline is in any position to throw stones about people going hunting for money, as Rex has made the point. They were just on holiday. Your chief of staff was just on holiday, Pauline. You keep looking in the mirror and saying, my chief of staff was on holiday in the US.
Not me. Labor's before ICAC,
Because we don't
if you're
have
silly enough to vote for an ICAC federally, I can guarantee you there'll be plenty of One Nation people appearing before.